Welcome, welcome. I'm Carol Livingston. I'm a member of the Ward 1 NPA Steering Committee, and I am going to be facilitating the meeting up to a point. It happens to be my daughter's 26th birthday, so Gary and I are going to leave at 7, and our intrepid Sam Dougherty is going to take over after that. So I'm going to get us started. Yes, sure.
Okay, we got two wired microphones here. And those can 50-foot cables, so they can go back that way. There's two wired microphones over here. So if this one, the floor is basically for this area, that one on that chair should be for that back row.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there's four wireless microphones. There's one over there. I'm not sure where it is exactly, but there's four wireless microphones. They're really not designed to go on that side of the room unless they come over here. So that one would be right for these people here. So there's wireless microphones out there. If you can find them, you can use them. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, just like to do a little bit of editorial on my part. Just welcome, glad you're here. It's no small thing to come out right now and be with your neighbors and talk about challenging things together and be ready to have those conversations. It's a tough time, and I really, really appreciate your efforts to be here and to participate and to let us know what we can do to make the NPAs stronger and stronger. Okay, the way we start is by going through the agenda. The copy of the agenda is out on the table. There's also a back-to-back copy for everybody of the two resolutions that we'll be voting on. All right, our recorder is Gretchen. Thank you very much. The food was brought from Namaste Kitchen Express by Rob. Thank you very much. And what I'd like you to do at this point is we're just going to go around the room. Do you want to speak before I say something?
Mine?
No?
I do my thing second.
Sure.
Okay.
So this is Gary Golden, who's one of our school board commissioners.
I'll get out of that way. Hi, sorry, we have a school board meeting that just started, so I need to say something and scoot. So we're voting tonight on the this year's budget. The board was given three, well, actually originally four scenarios from pretty much level funding or level services to draconian. We're looking at scenario in the middle, which is we're having already to adjust our teaching population, teachers, by 4 full-time positions because of declining enrollment. Our administration really tries to tie very directly how many students we have to how many teachers we need. So already we were looking at 4 positions. We were looking at some other smaller pieces. I've asked in the past that anytime we adjust teacher numbers, we also adjust administrative numbers because one side should not take the hit. If it's school enrollment going down, should go, all positions. But we are faced with a budget this year that's impacted negatively by the tax buy down last year. So we are still looking at, our costs are looking at about 4.5–5% based on new contracts, et cetera, inflation. But then you have to add on the state. There's not the money available from the state education fund until the buy down. So I was one of several who spoke that said we could have level funded, but we're afraid that next year, if we don't do some deeper cuts, we'd be looking at a draconian budget next year where we'd really have to slash. So we're trying to find a halfway point. So now an additional staff position from central office, and then smaller cuts down the line. As soon as we vote either tonight or Tuesday, I'll do another I've been trying to do a front porch forum post the last couple of days, hasn't gone well. So I will do that post to really inform you about what we're looking at. But we still are in the neighborhood 9.5% increase, down from our original 10.5, 11%. And we may get closer to 8.5 or 9, depending on what we decide tonight. I'll keep you posted. That's sort of what we know. If you bump into either Representative Gwinsky or Senator Baruf, ask them to stand up for public education, because right now they're making decisions based on zero numbers, zero savings. It's really, I don't mind. Well, we don't mind the conversations at the State House about reforming public education funding. Let's just do it by the numbers, not by hope and prayers. I mean, that's really kind of where they are right now. So if you have any questions, I'm on the bsdvt.org site. Please email or text, and I will get back to you as soon as I see your message. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary. So we're going to start, maybe Paul, you can start off. I don't know if there's a mic near you, to just introduce ourselves, and if you could tell us your name and then where you live. And if you're not Ward 1, just clarify that for us if you would.
Okay. Hi, all. Paul Fleckenstein. I live on Crowley Street. It's Ward 2. And I'm also here from the apartheid-free community working group to answer questions or clarify things. Thank you.
Mary Pierce, I'm on North Williams Street.
Thank you, Mary.
Linda Gutman, North Williams Street.
Allie Schachter, East District City Councilor.
Gretchen Platt, North Street and Nash Place.
Rob Gutman, North William Street, and on the steering committee.
John Bronovitz, Ward 6, South Prospect Street.
Lisa Lax, Tebow Parkway. Cheryl Green, East Village Drive.
Peter Wachowski, Burlington Co-housing, East Village Drive.
So Peter, before it goes to Catherine, could we snag Tom and the folks, and Jean and folks behind you, Milo?
Milo Grant, City Councilor for Central District. Jean Hopkins, East Village Drive. Ward 1.
Tom Darenthal, Nash Place.
Hi, Dee Salmer, Clark Street.
Mark Broderick, City Councilor representing Ward 8.
Angie Chapel Sokol, North Prospect Street.
Jonathan Chapel Sokol, North Prospect Street, and a member of the steering committee.
Catherine Verman, North Street.
Breck Bowden, Ward 1, Brooks Avenue.
Linda Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Yeah.
Catherine Bach, I live upstairs.
Kathy Elwell, North Prospect Street.
Sarah Flash off of East Avenue.
Duncan Krebs. I live on North Street in Ward 2, and I'm here with the apartheid-free community group.
Hi, Amy Malinowski. I live on South Williams. I'm in Ward 8.
Carter Newbeezer, Ward 1 City Councilor, and I'm over on Grove Street.
Hello, I'm Ian Keene. I'm on Riverside Avenue in Ward 1.
Greg Miller, Ward 1, Billadu Court.
Melanie Needle, Billadu Court, Ward 1.
Hi, Troy Hedrick, also Billadu Court and one of your state representatives.
Hello, I'm Kevin Bloom. I live on Riverside Avenue, and I'm a candidate for the office of Sheriff of Chittenden County.
Josie, Henry Street.
Aaron Malone, Henry Street.
Richard Hilliard, High Grove Court.
Right, is that everybody? And we've got some folks that are coming in. Nancy, you want to introduce yourself? This was a mic for Nancy. And Mark.
Nancy Kirby, Colchester Avenue.
Great. Mark, if you want to introduce yourself, thank you.
Mark Demers on Loomis Street.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you all so much.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Are you online with us?
I am. I'm Sid, and I am in Ward 1. I live on East Avenue.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Sophie Quest.
Happy to be here.
Hi. Sophie Quest, J Street.
I'm also online, Jane Schomburg, Tebow Parkway.
So Jane and then Jason, do you want to introduce yourself? Or is that Molly?
No, I'm Jason Stuffle, Colchester Ave.
Okay, if we take
Susan Linsky, East Avenue.
All right, have we gotten everybody from online, Barbara? Okay. All right, so just real quickly, I got stymied in there when I wanted to introduce the agenda. So here we are. What we're going to do in a few minutes is to vote on 2 resolutions. And trying to hold conversation to about 6:30, 6:35, which is challenging since we've just started. We will have time for about 20 minutes of speak out. The city council update will be after that. Because our Burlington school commissioners won't be here, we'll be skipping that focus. And my primary job, to be honest with you, as your facilitator, is to ensure that when Dr. Tromp comes, she gets that full time starting at 7:40. So that's my goal, is to stay true to all the updates that we always have, and then the time for speak out. So appreciate your help with that. Any questions about the agenda? Okay, Barbara, would you mind scooting it up and I'll read that? These are our participation guidelines. The Ward 1 NPA is sustained by community involvement and encourages engagement at our monthly meetings per the following guidelines. Number 1, we're collectively responsible for following the NPA meeting agenda as closely as possible regarding both presentation and discussion topics and time. Participants at the NPA will act in a positive, courteous manner that respects all of those present, both participants and presenters and guests, and their differing opinions, experiences, and perspectives. Number 3, any attendee requesting to speak who has not yet spoken at a meeting will be called on before others who've already had a chance to speak. Priority is given to Ward 1 residents. Number 4, whenever speaking, please be sure to project your voice and use the provided microphone. Number 5, if the facilitator feels the need to redirect activity in the room based on these guidelines, the facilitator will do so per point number 1. Okay, so we're going to not move into speak out. We're going to have the vote in between. And we have 2 resolutions. There's a paper out on copies out on the table with both sides if you're interested, with resolution for the redistricting task force. And the other one is about the apartheid-free efforts. So Jonathan, do you want to go ahead? And Jonathan's going to make a motion. Then we'll start with conversation after that.
Okay, and if I could just suggest, since we're starting a little late and we don't have school commission, that we let this go a little longer to 6:45 maybe, or something like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Do that. Yep.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to make a motion about a letter that we talked about at the last meeting. Kind of went through this. It's a letter to state and local educational leaders about the educational task force. And we've got, in the last 2 meetings, I think we've talked about what the output from, we had Martine Gulick-Larock here to talk about that. So let me read this fast, but I'm making a motion that Ward 1 approve this letter and we send it to leadership, educational leadership in the state of Vermont. Burlington's Ward 1 Neighborhood Planning Assembly is writing in support of the Vermont School Redistricting Task Force's Map for the Future, the Vermont Regional Educational Model. We feel the task force has objectively reviewed the data and Vermont's educational landscape and have created a process by which change can be made that will reduce costs while improving educational opportunity, as well as maintaining Vermont's treasured local character. They iterate the well-understood and evidence-based fact The district consolidation in and of itself does not save money, nor does it improve access to quality education. Rather, the task force identifies savings in BOCES-type structures that create the opportunity for districts to work together in the financial sphere, as well as leave open paths for shared student opportunities. Further, without a complete and complex overhaul of the whole state's school administration structure, this creates a collaborative environment that can grow. And by being strategic and voluntary in consolidation, residents of Vermont's communities retain control over their destinies and only merge districts where true advantages are identified. Finally, a plan to create more regional high schools brings communities together and revitalizes our old and costly to maintain. Now, Mark Demers, who I saw here a minute ago, hi Mark, found a typo in this. It should say, finally, a plan to create more regional high schools brings communities together and revitalizes our old and costly to maintain buildings. Thank you. I would take that as a friendly amendment to this, and I just added in, okay? Because it's not what was on, it was not what was on Civic Clerk, but I think it's good. It would also result in regional standardization of educational opportunity to the great benefit of our children. Please heed the product of the task force and recognize it as the work of a group of folks who are deeply committed to improving the educational landscape in Vermont.
So I'm going to ask for a second because this was a motion that Jonathan made, a second by Kathy Alwell. Is there discussion, questions about this letter? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to ask for a show of hands. All in favor of supporting this letter, please raise your hands. And these obviously are Ward 1 people, so I appreciate folks who are not Ward 1. They're not raising your hand, which is great. Thank you. Okay, hands down, please. All of you opposed to the letter, please raise your hand. Okay, you're Ward 6 though, right? No, you're not eligible. Sorry. One of the few times. All right. Thank you all very, very much. Tom?
Forgot to ask for people who aren't voting for or against or present.
Right, who are present and not, and are basically abstaining, is that what we're saying? Okay, so we have one of those. I'm sorry, two. Thank you, Kathy. I mean, Nancy. All right.
Yep. I don't know if you captured the people voting online.
No, I didn't yet. Jason, so folks online, Jason, can I ask you what your vote is?
Yes.
Yes. Jane Stromberg, can I ask you, but you're not Ward 1, are you?
I am, yeah. I live on Tebow Parkway.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jane.
It's okay. My vote is yes.
All right, and Sid?
Hi there. Yes, my vote is yes.
Thank you. Sophie?
Yes.
Thank you. And Susan?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you. So the letter, the motion is passed for that letter. Thank you all very much. So the second resolution, the way we're going to do this is that I'm going to, at the request of the committee, I'm going to read the content of the resolution. I'll ask, and that will count as, then I need to have someone make a motion to support that. So I'm just the reader. Is that okay? Does that, Kathy, does that make sense?
First.
And then you'll be the motion. Okay, you'll make the motion and then I'll ask for a second. All right. And then I'll ask for discussion. And then I'll ask for a vote. Okay, again, by a show of hands, if that makes sense. Our goal, or my goal, is to have everything completed by 6:45. So this gives us almost 20 minutes. So hopefully that will cover it. If not, we'll keep going and do what we need to do. I just want again to get our business accomplished and Dr. Tromp here and given her enough time. Okay, so I'm going to read the resolution. Hopefully you have seen it either through Front Porch Forum or it's paper out on the table. All right, resolution urging the council to place apartheid-free community pledge advisory question on the 2026 town meeting day ballot. Whereas for 2 consecutive years, petitions were submitted to place the following non-binding advisory question regarding the apartheid-free community pledge on the 2024 and 2025 town meeting day ballots. quote, shall the voters of the city of Burlington advise the mayor and city council to adopt the following pledge. The pledge goes as follows. We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people, and we oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression. And we declare ourselves an apartheid-free community, and to that end, we pledge to join others in working to end all support to Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. Whereas in both years, the city verified the petitions contained a sufficient number of signatures to meet the requirements of 17 VSA and 2642 and the Burlington City Charter, 5% of the registered voters of the city. And whereas in both years, the city council voted to block the aforementioned ballot question from appearing on the town meeting ballot. And whereas the city has discretion to include advisory questions on the ballot, and exercising such discretion furthers the council's ability to balance the efficient transaction of city business with the provisions of a local forum for discussing state and national issues. And whereas there is abundant precedent across Vermont for placing non-binding advisory questions about national or global issues on the town meeting day ballot, including a call for a nuclear arms freeze passed in 155 Vermont municipalities in 1982, a vote opposing the Patriot Act passed in Waitsfield in 2003, a call to withdraw U.S. troops from Iraq in 2005, and a measure opposing the basing of F-35 fighter jets in Burlington passed in 2018. And whereas similar petitions to place the apartheid-free community pledge on the 2025 town meeting day ballot were respected by municipal offices in Winooski, Brattleboro, Newfane, Thetford, Plainfield, Montpelier, Vergennes, Bristol, and Weybridge. And whereas in April 2025, the City Council unanimously approved a resolution for protecting free speech on Palestine. Whereas the precondition of responsible and accountable local governance is free speech and democracy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ward 1 Neighborhood Planning Assembly urges the City Council to place the aforementioned non-binding advisory question regarding the apartheid-free community pledge on the 2026 town meeting day ballot. Kathy, would you make a motion?
I make a motion that we put the apartheid-free communities pledge on, and we vote on this resolution to put it on the ballot.
To ask our city councilors to put it on the ballot. Okay, is there a second for that motion? Yes, Lisa. Okay, Lisa seconds it. Could I see a show of hands of folks who want to speak to this? So we just have a sense. Really? Okay, Jonathan would like to say something. Peter would like to say something. Neela would like to say something. Remind me of your name. Kevin? Kevin would like to say something. Doesn't mean if you think of something that I just want to have a sense of giving you enough time. And Catherine? Okay, and then online we have Sid would like to speak. Anyone else online want to speak to this issue? Susan. Okay, and again, as I said, I think it was Susan, it wasn't Sid.
No, Susan for sure.
Susan for sure. Okay, all right. Thank you, Susan, for your patience with me. I appreciate it. Okay, why don't we go ahead and start hands of folks again who wanted to speak to this. Peter, why don't you go ahead? We're going to try to stick to 2 minutes if you would.
Yeah, I think we'll hear the different what ifs and so forth, but I think the bottom line really is a very concrete one, that there are 2 points of view here. There are some people who have been horrified for years about what's going on with apartheid in Israel. And many of us have felt really intimidated by the accusations of anti-Semitism and worse, and support of terrorism even, if we speak out. And I think that the tide has turned and people are emboldened now to express their horror at the fact that our government is completely backing and supporting in all possible ways the perpetration of this crime against humanity. And this is the people now we have a chance in this oligarchy to be heard and to be taken for our rulers to even hear our voice. And we have going up the ladder doesn't work. We have to make public statements and make them as loud as possible. And this is an opportunity to do this. To try to keep this off the ballot is simply another attempt to stifle our voices and the effect of either being on the ballot or not being able to have an actual expression of the public will of the people of Burlington.
Thank you, Peter. Jonathan?
I'm basically supportive of the principle behind this. What I hear from a lot of people who object to it is that there is no civil dialogue on this conversation. It has gotten out of control. There's no place, there's no way for civil communication to happen on the subject. I'm wondering, my question, and I'll do this fast so I can cede the rest of my time, for the apartheid-free community to commit to working with the city of Burlington to find pathways for civil conversation on this subject. Given the fact that there's a wide variety of opinions and emotions about it, the passion is strong, but I think it behooves the city, for the people who feel strongest about this, to work with the city to find pathways for civil and positive and respectful dialogue. And I'd like to ask if that is something that the Apartheid-Free Committee will engage in.
Hey, other people who'd like to speak? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, neighbors. Along with running for sheriff, I'm also an artist and a musician and a Jewish person. And in 2025, I spent 9 months going into my studio every single day and thinking about genocide and what it looks like and what it's like being an American who lives here with very limited things we can do. There's only so many things we can do. And this resolution is one of those small, not necessarily small, but it's something that we can do to speak out, to make ourselves heard and make it very clear that we are opposed to genocide. I think that maintaining respectful dialogue is very important. And I also agree with that point. And I will cede the rest of my time.
Who else is interested in speaking? Milo?
Thank you. I believe my position is known publicly, but just in case, I don't support apartheid in any forms, and I certainly don't support genocide, which is being televised to us in 4 and 5G. Last year, I spoke up in support of Palestinian children, innocent men and women who are not part of Hamas. I'm sure you all saw it from Porch Forum, Reddit, Instagram, all kinds of social media. I was attacked in ways that I knew existed. I'm a Black woman in the United States of America and in the state of Vermont, living in the city of Burlington. It wasn't the first time that I had experienced racism, but this was on a whole nother scale. I also, because I know that Judaism does not cause genocide, and I said that publicly, I got a whole nother wave of attacks that were deeply, deeply anti-Jewish. I just want to say, with regards to the comments from our council president, who's refusing to put this on an agenda, that is not democratic. So what's happening nationally is here to refuse to put it on the agenda and to not allow the people of Burlington the right to vote yes or no. That in itself is a form of political violence. And the last thing I'll say is, Councilor Travers did mention mail that he had gotten to his home. He's not the only one. I have on my phone some via mail that was sent to my home. And if anyone would like to see it as evidence, I'm happy to show it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Milo.
Well, not happy to show it to you, but
Right.
I'm
Willing to share it. Yes.
Share.
Who else would like to speak to the resolution? Yes, Catherine?
I'm sorry. Now, where's the one?
Because
One of this is.
because I can call on Sid, would maybe, or Kathy. Who is it that was up on? Susan, would you be willing to speak at this point? And then
Yes, I
Paul?
would. I would. Yes, I would. Hi, I'm Susan and Susan Linsky, and I feel like however we can speak out against apartheid and against genocide, we need to, each and every village and town, and we have the opportunity to do it, and we should stand with the people who believe in humanity and being responsible for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, very much. Paul? You have a microphone?
Quickly, I want to respond to Jonathan's question. Absolutely, we will continue to do that. I think what you've seen in this Ward 1 NPA is what we are. We've gone to almost all of the NPAs. We've been in discussions. We've made presentations. We've held a day-long conference in Burlington. We had a apartheid-free community fair in City Hall Park. We've met one-on-one or in groups with almost all of the city councilors. We were invited to talk to the Progressive Party leadership. We did that. We've done hundreds or thousands of door-to-door conversations with petitioning and canvassing. We've met with dozens of groups in the Burlington area. We've met with workers at UVM in the unions to talk about this issue. So for the past 2 or 3 years, we have been talking to people about this issue. And I think, we urge others who are engaged with this issue to do the same thing. So we would love to come and talk with you, including the leadership of the Democratic Party in Burlington. We have not received an invitation to talk to their leadership, so that's something we'd love to do.
Thank you, Paul.
That's me.
Yes, Catherine, you ready?
Yes, I think so. So as a Quaker, and this resolution came from the Quakers calling people from all different religions in all of the country to come together and come up with something because of what was happening in Israel in 2021, I think it was. And they came up with this pledge, and it says non-binding, and it says that we're affirming justice and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. And I don't think anybody in this room is against most of this. And then it says that we don't want to support Israel's apartheid regime. So we're talking about putting limits on a government. We're not talking about the right of Israel to exist. At least I don't understand it that way. And what has happened since this, with all of the negative conversation, there have also been many good conversations. People have learned a lot. Ohavi Zedek right now has started a new series on Israel-Palestine using the Braver Angels method, which is a way of speaking where everybody listens and everybody's respectful. And I went to the first one, and the whole purpose is for people to be able to meet when they have opposite views on Israel and Palestine. And it was amazing. People really opened up. And I think that's partly because of this discussion. And I don't understand how it's a non-binding pledge. And why is it so important to say no to it? And so important to not let people vote on it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Who else is interested in speaking to the resolution? Anyone else? Okay, are we ready to vote? All right, what I'd like, I'm sorry. Sorry, Carter, go ahead. You have your mic?
I just wanted to voice my support of the resolution, and I do hope that voters are given a chance on town meeting day to voice their opinion. Jonathan, I think your point is well taken. We need respectful dialogue. I've tried to approach this because it is a very sensitive topic. I have my views. I've had my views for a long time, but clearly it's a divisive issue. And that said, that's what democracy is all about. Like, what better place or arena to engage in civil discourse than the democratic process, in my view. So for me, there's a substance of this issue conversation, which is for the election, if this is placed on the ballot, but this is an issue of democracy and allowing people to have the conversation. I will say as well, the mayor's office has been engaging faith leaders from across the spectrum in private conversations around this issue, around how do we improve relationships in our community, how do we have this conversation civilly, not work that necessarily gets publicized in WCAX or whatever, but important work nonetheless that the mayor's office has been up to. And then the last piece here is just, I just want to reiterate what Paul, you said. Folks have gone through every single method that we have laid out as a city and as in city charter, whether it's getting the petition signatures to get on the ballot, going to NPAs, which is what we have created as a forum for democratic engagement. They have one-on-one conversations with city councilors, one-on-one conversations with unions, political groups, etc. It just feels so antithetical to democracy. And then we overlay on top of that the reality that we're not just having this conversation in Burlington, Vermont. The Trump administration and the federal government are arresting folks for writing op-eds and having an opinion, for having the conversation. Our federal government throws folks in jail, and it's not with some like, oh, they did this other thing. Explicitly, they put charges on someone. I'll wrap up here. They charge someone specifically with the quote unquote crime of writing an op-ed and being an immigrant, which we just all experienced downtown. So I just think in this time, it's really, really important that we reaffirm our commitment to the democratic process, even when conversations are painful and difficult and hard, and maybe model how we have those conversations in a productive, healthy way.
Carter, thank
Thanks.
you. Anyone else want to speak to this issue? Yes, Ally, go ahead.
Hi there. Yes, as my fellow counselors are talking, I just want to acknowledge a few things as well. That, you know, for better or for worse, I would say the way that our community has handled conversations on this issue over the past couple of years has not been good. It's been incredibly divisive. I would call it very toxic. I know, you know, Counselor Grant, the harassment you've received, horrific. The harassment I've received, horrific. We have not handled this well. And so, you know, there's been concern expressed in the past when this question, which, you know, I think a lot of it, 90+% of it, there's broad agreement, and there's parts of it that have felt contentious. And the ability to find ways to have that conversation, I think we've really failed as a community at having those conversations. And twice now, and I was not on council at the time, this has not been voted to be put on the ballot, which is, you know, for better or for worse. I don't know the history of why our democratic system here is set up such that council ultimately determines what does and doesn't go on the ballot. It's not the first time things haven't been put on the ballot. I don't know why it's set up that way. But I will say that both times when that has happened, there have been concerns expressed that this question as it's being presented and the impact on the community is tearing us apart. I think many of us have felt that. And I think what I, you know, encourage us to be thinking about is how do we move forward from here? You know, I think we have such incredible crises facing us as a city right now. We're facing another tremendous budget gap that we're trying to figure out how to fill. We have major threats at the federal level against our neighbors and community members and our funding sources and our housing programs and so many things that require us to be coming together and turning towards each other. And I really appreciate, Jonathan, your statement about civil discourse. You know, I really have tried to say I am here to talk, and I have not been reached out to once around this issue, this cycle, to engage in a dialogue around it. So as much as maybe efforts are being made, I don't think they're reaching everybody. I'm not sure who they're reaching. I do think dialogue is the answer. I've been in conversation with our Community Justice Center around what could we be doing as a city to bring us together on this. So, you know, I just sort of want to name that I think in this moment, we have to be finding ways to come together. And that's what I really encourage us all and talking about as we work through this challenging issue.
Thank you, Ally. Anyone else who would like to speak to this issue, to the
I
resolution?
realize that I'm not eligible to vote as a non-vote.
Okay, you need a mic, you need a microphone. Right behind you, right behind you. This one right behind you. Right.
Thank you.
Here you go.
I gather I'm not eligible to vote on this matter, but what is the significance of the term non-binding? And with other communities where the resolution was approved or ratified, is it also on a non-binding basis?
Paul, would you like to respond to that for us? What non-binding means and
What is the
was,
significance of the term?
and was that with also the case in the other Vermont towns that supported it?
Yeah, it's advisory and as such, it's non-binding. So it's designed to be an expression of popular support, majority support for taking actions to cut ties, among other things, to apartheid Israel. So it's advisory. And then the next step is for the city council to adopt the pledge or to take action boycott or divestment or other things that are possibilities like taking steps to confront anti-Palestinian racism. So there are a number of steps that's left up to the bodies where this is where this recommendation is made to. So we're not specifying anything in particular, but it's an expression that there are important things that we can do to take action.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I've been working on this pledge for a couple of years now. I think that I wanted to speak to a couple of things that Councillor Schachter mentioned, and I think that just as much, if there are people who are upset about this, I think there are plenty of people who are upset about us not taking a stand on this, and standing up for those who have been silenced in many ways. And that is what we are trying to do. We have talked to so many people, like Paul said, like Carter said, and we continue to try that dialogue and come together. I know Jewish Voice for Peace does this a lot. They are a great organization. And I wanted to underscore the fact that, you know, we have so many struggles federally and locally. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about this struggle too. They need to all be connected, and they are connected. You know, the ICE terror that we see on our streets here is a direct correlation of what is happening in Palestine and Gaza, and a police state and a military occupation. As well as like our free speech rights, like Carter mentioned with, you know, Rumeysa Ozturk for getting jailed because she wrote an op-ed. So again, this is a free speech issue. This is an issue of democracy. And I think, you know, maybe people don't agree on it, but you can vote no. And that's the point of putting it on the ballot. So you have your democratic right to vote yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this issue? I think we've reached time. Jonathan, could you come up and help me count folks? If you wouldn't mind. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hand to vote like you did with the previous resolution. Sid, did you want to say something?
The voting populace is all.
It's gotta be, yes.
Sid, is there something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay, and that's Susan. Okay, so I think we're fine. So Susan, if you could put the hand down, that would be great. Okay, so are we all set? All right, could we see a show of hands, please, for people who would vote yes to support this resolution? Vote yes, please. Okay,
There's the third one.
Sophie.
Yeah, we got Sophie, 21. Is that what you got?
Yes. Okay, so 21 yes. So hands down, please. Could we see your hands, please, for folks who would oppose the resolution? Hands up, please. Folks are all Ward 1, right? Okay. 10 opposed. It's Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So 20 in support of, 11 opposed. I'm sorry.
Extensions.
The abstaining, please. Okay, so we have 2 people who are abstaining. 3, okay. Okay. 4, okay.
Did you count online?
Okay, 4 abstaining. Okay, great. And it was really good to hear what people had to say. Hopefully we continue the conversation. Okay. All right. So I used to be an 8th grade teacher. How about everybody stand up and breathe? We just stand up and breathe for a second.
Yeah.
I need to do that. I don't know if the rest of you need to do that. But that's what I need to do. Okay, so we're going to move into our speak out time. And we're going to conclude that hopefully around 7:10 and give Carter and Allie a chance to do an update before we have Dr. Tromp. So you all can have a seat. Let's do, folks, anyone who has announcements. So let's do announcements first, and then we'll do speak out. Tom, yes.
Hi, want everyone to know that there's a lot of changes that have happened in the tax law in 2025, and one of the ways that the type of person who has received a paper check for a refund, that the IRS is going to strongly discourage that this year, and so you're going to want to, yes.
They're gonna discourage you.
No, from receiving a paper.
Oh.
They're looking for direct deposit.
Oh.
And I'm tax aide with AARP. AARP is going to providing tax services starting in February, and I'll be posting something on Front Porch Forum, letting people know what the schedule is and how to contact them. But there are a lot of. It's free. Oh, it's free, aside from my personal charge. No. It's there's a fair number of dates, and so look forward to more information on Front Porch Forum.
Great, thank you, Tom. Anyone else who has just announcements? I'd like to make a quick announcement in response to a posting by Troy Hedrick, our representative, about there's legislation up that the ACLU is suggesting that people support around protecting transgender rights. So there's more and more information in Front Porch Forum about that upcoming. So if you could just keep your eye out for that. Yes, Earhart. Sorry.
Thanks, Carol. Just really quickly, I don't know if there's been announcements on this before, and I don't see Dave Cawley here, our fearless leader in the Old North End Coalition, but the Old North End is doing Old East End, sorry. Yes, getting my directions confused. Old East End Coalition. Old East End Coalition is hosting its annual Winterlude Festival again this year. It's going to be on Friday, late in the afternoon, early evening, Friday, February 6th, and Saturday, the 7th. There'll be more information forthcoming.
Just since Carol brought it up, I'll mention the two trans bills actually that are have been introduced. H76 is the one that Carol was referring to, that ACLU is in doing a lot of work around supporting. This would essentially create mechanisms by which trans youth in Vermont would still be able to receive Medicaid, who are on Medicaid would still be able to receive trans care, even in the absence of federal Medicaid dollars that are being withdrawn. I just want to be clear that there are a lot of people in the very right offices who are having this conversation about how to make this happen and how to commit the funds. And we may be able to do this, and we're hoping to be able to do this without actual legislation in very similar ways to how we committed to fund abortion care, even when the federal dollars were withdrawn from that as well. So this is me saying, if you don't hear or see a lot of movement on the bill 576, that's not necessarily a reason to be alarmed, because I can tell you that the right people in the administration, Department of Health Access, are having the conversations, and there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic about that. The other bill, for what it's worth, is 550, which creates protocols and procedures for allowing trans-identified folks who are incarcerated to be housed according to their identity.
Anyone else with an announcement? Peter, you snag a.
Yeah. Last month, I mentioned that I was prepared to talk to people about Venezuela, and in the last month, things have changed. People are a lot more interested these days. As a matter of fact, I actually published an article recently about Venezuela's communes, which is basically the heart and soul of what's going on and what's keeping people in Venezuela resisting for 25 years against the most ferocious attack you can imagine. I actually mentioned it in Front Porch Forum and made a link to it. It was first published, and it's been picked up in other papers, but it's in Counterpunch. Just look up my name in Counterpunch. The point is, though, that I mentioned it here is that it's basically a form of government that they've been working on installing for all these years, which basically puts assemblies like this, neighborhood assemblies, are called communal councils, consejos comunales, that actually are taking over the power in the country. It's a long-term project to establish socialism based literally on neighborhood councils, and believe me, they get a lot more turnout than we do because they really do have power, which is increasing. It's a story that's not been told ever in the normal press here, but it's a fact. It's very important. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Anyone else with announcements? Okay, so let's open it to Speak Out, which this is an opportunity for you to raise issues that you have concerns about such a night, and also to think about other ways that you want, upcoming decisions that we have that are part of what's happening in the city. So please feel free to speak to anything that's of concern to you and to your neighbors. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak out? Yes.
The eviction rate in our community has gone up 45% in the last 5 years. It's a crisis. Any of us who live in Burlington have noticed the suffering going on in our community. We have resources available to us, but we're just squandering them. The sheriff's department has increased their private security work by 500%. And in 2024, 5% of that money, totaling $26,000, went to the sheriff's personal bank account. How many people could have been housed for $26,000? I mean, it depends on rent, but we all could imagine something, right? And so we have this resource of the sheriff's office, and what they're doing is nothing. At best. At worst, they're just adding fuel to the fire. And what's motivating me to run for sheriff in our community is to reform this office to find alternative solutions that work for both landlords and tenants, like setting up a jobs program that includes a hiring bonus that can start a good faith payment to a landlord for a tenant who gets a job. And then we can use these resources to mediate discussion between tenants and landlords to get people back on track with the payment plan. There's so many things that we could be doing, and we're doing none of it. We don't need an ancillary tertiary police force. It's not keeping us safe, and I would argue it's doing the opposite. So I'm here as one of your neighbors to ask for you to vote for me on August 11th in the primary. I know it's far away, but this is my first NPA meeting. I've lived in Burlington for a long time, and I can't believe I came sooner. It's so inspiring to see everybody here. And if anyone has any questions about this, just ask me. I'm happy to talk to anyone about anything in our community. Thank you so much for listening.
Say your name again.
Kevin Bloom, like a flower.
Anyone else who has something to say, to speak out? Yes, very quickly grab your mic.
Yes.
Here's one.
There.
Thank you. Kevin, I assume the incumbent will also be seeking re-election. Is that correct?
From what I've heard, yeah, there's
Yeah.
an article in Vermont Figure about
My question is, have you either sought or received endorsement and support from Sarah George?
Have you emailed with her?
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't mind.
Yes, I have. I've emailed with her, and we were going to meet, but she had to work on a double murder, which does seem more important than meeting with me. But we have plans to connect. You know, both are important, yes, but I have.
Thank you. Anyone else with something for Speak Out? Okay, folks, I'm gonna ask,
Wait,
was there somebody else? I'm sorry, Jean, go ahead.
I just want to thank people who signed the petition, which Brian Chena is co-sponsoring. We're hoping to vote that we can go step by step to universal health care by first providing every resident in Vermont with access to a primary care physician. And I think, you know, I've been working on this for 30 years, joined the League of Women Voters because they were speaking up for universal health care. And so step by step, we're going to get there. And the phrase I'm using now is housing is healthcare. And I'm so pleased to see more housing being built, because if people are, as you said, I think the more stable, the healthier we'll be.
Thank you, Jean. Anyone else for Speak Out?
Could we hear you again well, please?
I'm sorry, Sophie, go ahead.
We no longer hear you very well. We did before, but we no longer do.
Okay. All right, we're just struggling with the microphone, so thank you for the reminder. We appreciate it. So I'm going to introduce Ali Schachter to come on up, Carter Newbeeser to come on up, and Sam Doherty to come on up. Sam is going to be your facilitator. Okay, feel free, please, to get food and drink and at the time.
Hi, everyone. Carter and I are going to share the updates here per usual. So I'm going to talk about a couple things going on. One was just a good news update, which is that our interim human resources director, Lynn Reagan, was officially appointed on Monday at the council meeting unanimously by the council, came highly recommended by her staff, by the search committee, by city staff. It's really great for the city. She's been serving in the interim role since I think July of 2024. And so that provides a lot of really critical stability at the city level, particularly at the human resources level in light of a really tough budget cycle last year. And as we're sort of navigating another difficult looking budget season ahead, which is another quick update. And I think we'll probably both speak to this a bit, but the mayor's office has come forward to share that we're anticipating up to a $12 million budget gap looking ahead to the next to fiscal year 27. So our fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30th. So this winter and spring, we start thinking about next year's budget that goes into effect on July 1. And so we're looking at up to a $12 million budget gap. We're exploring all sorts of ways to try to close that gap, including, and I think Councilor Newbeeser is going to speak a little bit more to the potential for a public safety tax on this year's ballot. And we're exploring all sorts of cost cutting measures and also ways to potentially generate more revenue for the city. Each city department is working on budget stuff already. So there's going to be a lot more to speak to on that in the months ahead. But, you know, we had a roughly the same amount of budget gap to close last year and the year before. And each year it gets harder and harder to figure out what levers we can push. And those cost increases are due to a number of things, not least of which is we have a really big city staff team and healthcare costs are going up with double digit percentages every year. Inflation, you know, is slowing, but hasn't you know, sufficiently slowed. We're feeling that a lot. And there's, you know, certain ways that we just really have to be thinking about really being as efficient as we can be at the city level. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of conversation about that this spring. We're continuing to think about recycling. So that's been a sort of hot button issue that I think we've come before you all to talk about. But we're thinking about I don't know exactly what the timing is going to be at this point, either later this month or probably in February, whether or not to engage Casella in a 7-year contract for recycling pickup or to keep operating it as a city. And there's a lot of conversation to be had, but the high level highlight for all of you is your recycling will continue to be picked up by the city. You will not have to get your own independent recycling services. And I think there's also really broad interest among the counselors that whether or not we go with this 7-year contract, there's a lot of challenges right now with operating our own recycling program. There's broad interest in working towards a consolidated waste management system where ultimately trash recycling and compost would be picked up as a municipally provided service. So I think there's sort of two conversations in my mind happening right now. One is what do we do in the short term about recycling and considering this 7-year contract, and then how do we kind of build towards a consolidated waste management system? Say when that 7-year contract expires, what would it take? And I did ask DPW Director Chapin Spencer what the impact would be of pursuing the consolidated waste management system if we do go with a 7-year contract. Is that going to push back the time at which we would be able to implement a fully consolidated system? And his response was a fully consolidated system is just a tremendous undertaking. It's going to require all new trucks, all new processing facilities. So regardless of whether or not we go with the contract, we're looking at roughly that amount of time, sort of minimum, before we would be able to fully implement a consolidated waste management system. So I feel like these two conversations are happening side by side, and it will likely be coming back before the council within the next month to make a final decision. And I think I can, we did pass a resolution on Monday as well around housing. It was called the Build Resolution. Burlington Urban Infill or Uplift, I can't remember exactly the acronym, but basically looking at with the adoption of the new neighborhood code at the end of Mayor Weinberger's administration, we are really actively trying to understand where there has not been as quick of uptake as we would like to see in the creation of new homes, specifically sort of homes within existing neighborhoods, not big, large developments with hundreds of units, but like people adding an ADU or doing a renovation, these sort of house by house renovations to build more housing here that is made possible with the neighborhood code. What are the barriers, whether it's permitting, availability of labor, people's education around what's possible. So we've requested that CEDO and the mayor's administration, and they're already doing this to a certain degree, and we're just kind of trying to uplift this and bring it out into a broader conversation, but really understanding what are those barriers so that we can start tackling them, because we know we have a housing crisis on our hands. And so that felt like an important step. And the mayor gave a press conference today, I believe it was at 9:30. I was in back-to-back work meetings all day, so I still myself need to get caught up in it. But it was entirely about housing and some of the strategies that we're thinking about exploring to address our housing shortage, our affordability crisis. So I think there's important stuff there, along with better enforcement of vacant buildings and some more specific strategies to address our homelessness crisis. So I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much. I'm glad Flash was down here.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. So yeah, no, that works. I just want to make sure, because I'll start ranting. Hey, everybody. Everything Allie said. Two things. One, first, I just want to correct myself from the last time I was here, and sorry I had to miss the last meeting. I got very excited because there was a chart perfectly proving my point about short-term rentals, but I failed to, well, there's no labels on those charts. Monthly numbers next to yearly numbers messed up my math. So I just wanted to throw out there that my numbers were wrong, and I want to make sure that I note that before I do anything else. Still important to raise taxes on short-term rentals. We'll get there eventually in CDNR. Yeah, two things. I want to focus on the budget and then a tax advisory question that I'm hoping the council will vote to put onto the ballot. So I will start with the budget. Agree and appreciate everything Allie said. The reason we keep seeing these structural budget gaps are by 0.5%, which I believe is somewhere in like the $600,000 range of new revenue every year. So that's just not keeping pace with healthcare costs, etc. And then the other piece is this is sort of the last year that we've weaned ourselves off of all of the federal one-time funds that we use to fund ongoing expenses. And so the reason it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder is because those pots of money are now gone. We've used up almost all of them. So there is a lot there. I've appreciated the mayor's office in this budget cycle. We had a conversation here about a year ago about some of the feedback you all had, and certainly folks from the council had around how do we start the budget process earlier, both from a council and public engagement perspective, and then how do we include city staff in a way that's productive while still sort of respecting professional boundaries. Almost all the suggestions like voluntary retirements, voluntary furlough programs, a number of things that we talked about. All of those are being implemented in this budget process, and this is, one of the first publicly and privately robust engagements that I've seen around the budget. So I've appreciated that. I appreciate that feedback that's taken. The tax advisory question. So this is the proposal coming out of the mayor's tax advisory fairness group. It had the widest support among all the members. There were members from both parties, folks who are subject matter experts. And essentially what it is a $30,000 exemption on the municipal side for your property tax bill. So whatever your property tax bill is assessed at, you say it's $300,000, this would tax you at $270 instead. There's a similar mechanism already in place on the state side for veterans. I think they have a $40,000 exemption, I believe, on their state property tax. And so what this would do when you do out the math, it's a revenue neutral proposal. 2/3 of all properties, residential properties in Burlington would see their tax bill go down by at least $150. So it's not groundbreaking, but it is the first proposal that I've seen as long as I've been involved locally that tries to target economic relief to working and middle class folks in the city. I think it's really important. I'm very supportive. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't, if I could wave a wand, I have a broad set of proposals around tax fairness and taxing wealthy folks that I'd like to see. But this is modest, and I think it's realistic that we could get something like this through the State House because there's precedent for it, and it's not this. We're not asking to establish an income tax tomorrow. So my hope, and I don't know if we have the votes or not yet on the council to get it on the ballot, but my hope is that we will, and I encourage folks to come to our next council meeting on January 20th, which is where we will vote to either put that on the ballot or not put that on the ballot, and encourage us to allow voters to voice whether or not they think this is a good idea, and give the council some direction. And I think I've only got 2 more minutes here. So I will triage this a little bit, looking through all my scribbles here. I always draw when I'm thinking. Everybody's talking at the beginning of the meetings. There's a petition going around, and that might be it right there, but I need ballot signatures because I'm running for re-election. So a little selfish plug. I've gone door knocking a couple times already, and every time I've forgotten to ask folks to get signatures on the ballot. So I need to do that and do my paperwork. Oh, and then finally, we'll put them on Front Porch Forum, and we will, another sort of selfish plug here, put it on Front Porch Forum, and we'll try to advertise it and probably do some lit drops of like little invites in different neighborhoods. But we are starting a series. It looks like I won't have a contested race, but I still want to get out there and talk to folks about what's going on in the council, some of the things I want to do and why I'm running for a second term. We're going to have community conversations around affordability. We had our first one over at co-housing last week that went really, really well. And I really appreciate, as always, coming to co-housing and talking a little bit about what I've dubbed our affordability agenda. So how do we make life more affordable in realistic ways, knowing that the city of Burlington can't do everything. We're living with the federal government and state government that's not necessarily laser focused on affordability. But how do we put more money into affordable housing through the Housing Trust Fund? And how do we raise revenue without just going to you all and asking for more, an increase on your property tax bill for the dedicated tax? How do we, even within our existing authorities, without having to go to the state, how do we increase fees and taxes on folks who can afford it? So for example, the Burlington Country Club, I think there's tools that we have at our disposal that we could see the amount they're paying into the pot increase. So a number of other ideas there that I will get into, but please look out for those, and we'll hopefully see folks there. That's all I got. Thanks all.
So just one more quick thing to add on the tax fairness ballot question, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that what would go on the ballot in March would be sort of advisory, like, yes, we would like the city to continue exploring this further. We're not at the point where it would actually be made as voted on as a charter change. That the earliest that would come would be November. So That's my understanding, that right now we're sort of just gauging interest and even considering to potentially explore whether or not, and I do think that exploration, like, there's a lot of openness to continuing to explore what this would look like. The earliest it would actually come on the ballot for true charter change would be November, if not next year's town meeting day. So just to clarify, the question this year would purely be to sort of like gauge where the citizenry is at today on the possibility of exploring this. But it's not going to be binding no matter what goes on the ballot.
Thank you so much, Carter and Ally. We are now going to have some time for questions for our counselors. And it's my understanding that our cutoff for questions is when the UVM president arrives. So we will go until then. I did see Richard's hand first.
Thanks, Sam. Question for you both. Well, first of all, a statement, and secondly, a question is, my understanding from DPW is that only one method of trash collection and recycling has been considered. And I regret that. I think that's almost as if DPW made the decision before you explore other opportunities. I mentioned that before to you both. The second is, what is the budget going to look like? What is our year, our fiscal year ends June the 30th? What is the situation going to look like then? Because the best way to stop spending money next year is to stop spending money this year.
I won't go into recycling too much because we're going to talk about it more. We'll have more time, but briefly, I think it's a very open topic. I'm absolutely for a publicly owned and operated consolidated model through the city. I think that's the way to go. I think that's the best outcome for consumers, but there's from there all the way to, fully privatized, even on the bill side, there's a spectrum of conversations that have happened. So I don't know that we're yet locked into any direction there. The unassigned fund balance is relatively low. We were operating, I think, at and don't, this is my numbers again here, don't quote me, but around the 5 to 7.5% range, which is actually not recommended, but we've been hovering around that because we've been filling budget gaps in past years historically over the last decade by lowering the unassigned fund balance. So there's not much really room there, I guess, in terms of what we're going to look like before we start next fiscal year. But we have, and I know the mayor's office has been looking at, basically the mayor's gone to every single department head, and every department head is now creating and then going to present what a 5% cut to their department would look like and what a 10% cut would look like. And what does that mean in terms of programming? What does that mean in terms of staffing? And then what does it mean if you keep level funding right now? So that's a question, and that's going to affect how much we either raise or don't raise the property tax. If we raise nothing, we're going to have to make substantial cuts. And there's no way I think that we get out of this budget gap without, double-digit increase to a property tax without laying off some positions. Some of those positions are filled, some of those positions aren't filled right now. And so it would just be not hiring for open positions, et cetera.
Yeah, real quick, in the school budget, we get to vote on.
Thanks. The school budget we get to vote on. It's presented, there's some number, we say yes or no. But the city budget is divided up into different chunks, and we only vote on one slice, right? Is that the way it's going to be this year too?
Yes, I believe like the rules haven't changed around what portion of the budget requires public voting versus not. Maybe someone else in this room would know exactly, like the portion that increases on the property tax, on our property tax bill. Does that go to the voters too? No? We also have some experts in this room.
Well, I guess I don't think I've ever seen a city tax outside of public service officers type tax.
Yeah, so there are certain splinter taxes that have to come in front of the voters, which is why this month we're voting on whether or not to put a 3% or 5% public safety tax increase onto, or a 5-cent public safety tax increase onto the ballot. So that would be something that would go in front of voters, and that would close our budget gap by about 3 million if approved. So that splinter tax, many of our splinter taxes do have to go to the voters. But there's certain portions of the tax revenue that we generate that are sort of built into our charter as something that the city it happens without having to go through voter approval. But many of the taxes do go through voter approval. And that's actually a reason why sometimes we continue to have these budget gaps, because the cost increase, inflation increases, but until we bring it back to the voters, our revenue side doesn't increase. So we don't have like an inflation adjuster for many of our tax sources, which means that we end up finding ourselves going back to voters a fair amount for certain taxes. But then there's certain parts of it that are sort of automatically adjust based on where the city budget lands. I don't know if that's a helpful answer.
Okay.
But, and I know there's other questions, but just very briefly, the debt service and retirement, it just automatically goes. No matter what, that's by charter. We couldn't change that if we wanted to without a charter change. So whatever we owe on the debt and whatever we owe for retirement for city employees, basically.
Yeah, that changes automatically without anyone voting.
Yeah. That does not prohibit a change in what retirement formula is, all right?
No, that's right.
Council members, I hope and expect that in this evening's interface with President Trump, you will confront her with health and safety violations in some of the residence halls at UVM. And I believe Converse Hall and Coolidge Hall, black mold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I hope you take advantage of this and hold her accountable. And furthermore, is UVM subject to city inspection, housing inspection officials? Can the city of Burlington visit and order UVM to make necessary corrections, repairs, and maintenance, and so forth? Thank you. So I hope the two of you speak up and reinforce these conditions. And as I said previously, hold her accountable and demand a plan of reparation. Thank you.
So, and Merrick, who's the lead sponsor on this, and did an excellent job and led, I would argue, one of the most bipartisan processes for a resolution as long as I've been on council so far, and did a lot of work on this. That's the conversation we're having in ordinance in terms of what is the appropriate way to make sure that housing on campus is safe. My personal view is that they should not be treated any differently than any other landlord in the city. That will require increasing the capacity of DPI, Department of Permitting Inspections, to treat them like that at a minimum. Maybe there's an adjusted timeline because we have a 5-year code inspection cycle. If you're a good landlord, blah, blah, blah. If you're a bad landlord, that increases, or you have a bad inspection. UVM made a claim prior to the new president coming on in a communication with our Ward 8 counselor, that the city did not have the legal authority to enforce minimum housing code on the university. There's no sort of legal muster as far as I understand it to back that up. Certainly at a minimum, they are subject to the sort of base state standards. But certainly there's nothing that would prevent us from enforcing housing code on the largest landlord in the city. They didn't technically walk that back when we had the discussion, but my understanding is that And I'm always, every time somebody takes over the hospital or UVM, everybody says how great they are. And then we, 3 years later, have a different view. So I'm cautiously optimistic, based on everything I know about the President Trump's track record at her previous job. She did an excellent job in that role, handled a lot of difficult, tricky situations, some of which we've had to navigate here as a city and a community. So I want to allow her to, step into it and yeah, see what happens. Try to go in as good faith as we can.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I do think that UVM, as far as I can tell, here's what was in the resolution. And as Councilor Newbeezer shared, it is sitting in our ordinance committee to figure out exactly what the enforcement mechanisms are at the city level to ensure that UVM is in compliance with our minimum housing standards. I was able to go on a tour of UVM housing recently, which they offered to counselors as part of the resolution. So we saw, I think, 4 or 5 different residence halls of varying age, of varying quality, of sort of varying points along the renovation continuum. Some had recently been grouted, some were due to be grouted this summer, some had rugs recently replaced, some have rugs on the schedule for next year to be replaced, and sort of understanding how they keep up with all of that. And I will say that since this resolution was passed, they've now put really big, they're probably like 24 by 36 inch stickers on many walls saying, here's how you report a concern about your housing, and QR codes, really easy to use QR codes. And they discovered sort of some database funniness with when concerns are reported, how students are being followed up with, that due to some staff turnover, there was the email mechanism wasn't working correctly for everybody. So I think there was actually some really positive outcomes that I was really pleased to see they've already been delivering on, and they're walking in right now.
And I hope your dad, as a UVM faculty member, can use his standing to reinforce our concern and our interest in this situation.
I don't have a dad at UVM, but no.
I don't even with the School of Business.
He sometimes facilitates student projects, not a professor.
Cheryl, you want to ask the last question here?
Yeah, thanks. First, I want to just say thank you so much to Ali and Carter, Milo and Merrick and Troy for keeping on. Really such a piece of work you're all doing. And I also am very glad to hear that, I think you said it was a mayor's initiative to ask each city department if they were to cut their budget by 5% or maybe 10%, what that would look like. That sounds very encouraging to me in terms of people who are involved directly participating. So thank you, no question.
Does anyone have one final question?
Could I do a 25-second public safety committee update about the accountability court? I think everyone.
It has to be 25 seconds.
It can be. So as we know, we had the special prosecutor. We opened up a new courtroom in order to specifically deal with individuals who had large numbers of open cases. As of early this week, the docket would have cleared 59 defendants and 509 cases. They have 28 active pending defendants, accounting for another 187 dockets. There are still 22 defendants who remain on warrant, open warrant. We know 2 of them are in prison in other states. And broad-based resolutions include prison, treatment court, straight probation, and some that are sentenced on supervised community service. So a new tool for community safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you to Ali and Carter and everyone who asked questions. Yeah, as we are very, very excited. I just want to sit, yeah, right here, sorry. We're very, very excited to welcome the new UVM president, Dr. Tromp, here. And it's my understanding she's going to give a brief presentation, and then we're going to open it up to questions after.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm so pleased to be here and I'm so glad to get a chance to connect with people in their home communities. Our community is really important to me and it's an important part of the mission of the university. So I'll just go through a few slides to give some background about how I'm thinking about the university as we move forward. How can I signal advancing? Thank you. Thank you so much. What you probably do know already is that we are Vermont's flagship land grant university. And a land grant university, land grants were established during the Civil War at another time of great strife in our country. And were established to create a better future for a nation at a time when the nation was being riven. And I've put some data here just to make visible to you our undergrad and grad population of students. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I wanted to share something. Some of you may already know about the Carnegie designation for universities, but we were recently named an R1 university. And what's special about R1 is that only a small fraction of the universities in the country have earned that R1 designation. And it means that you're producing enormously high quality, well-funded research, and that you're producing graduate students who are working in cutting edge fields. So we earned that Carnegie classification just this last year, and the university has just been justly proud of that. But I don't want to just talk about that as a feather in our cap or a badge on our coat. I want to talk about what it means for the community. So we offer this huge array of programs. And one of the first things I said when I arrived is this is an amazing range of offerings for a university. It's genuinely a comprehensive university that's designed to serve all different kinds of academic needs and pathways. But what you might not know is not only do we have traditional degree programs, we also have things like micro-credentials, we have things like certificates. So there's opportunities for people who are interested in getting some additional education or in participating in things over on campus to get engaged. Next slide, please. And we're really concerned about helping to ensure that we have the workforce for Vermont. So many of you will know that Vermont has what some people call an upside down demographic. So instead of having a smaller number of older people at the top and a larger number of young people, we have a larger number of older people and a smaller number of younger people. And what that means is that there's a smaller workforce for the needs. It means that we have people who are retired that are in the largest group, and we don't have as many people that are contributing by earning in the same ways that that are working in the labor force. And so that has an impact on, do you have the healthcare providers that you need in your state? Do you have the teachers that you need for your children or your grandchildren? Do you have the service providers in every profession across the state? And one of the things we're very proud of, a lot of folks said to me when I first arrived, because as we have that shrinking demographic, we have a smaller number of Vermonters who are available to come to college because that demographic is upside down. And so we actually, for every Vermont student that we graduate, for every Vermonter that UVM graduates, we graduate 2 out-of-state students who stay and work in Vermont. So they're bringing their ideas, their innovation, they're starting their businesses, they're raising their families, they're contributing in Vermont. And that's been a real impact that I think has been largely one that we haven't talked about historically. Okay, and will this video, can you get this video to run? I want to talk a little bit about that workforce component and how it helps drive the economy of the state if we can get this video to run. Okay, this is the same problem that we had. Okay, well, I'm happy to send to your ward meeting the 2 videos that we had linked in here. One is about the workforce development, and it's about our tech hub, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. And the other one is about a whole healthcare system that we're producing with Osher. So I'll mention some things about that. One of the things I'm really proud of too is that the students who choose UVM, when you look out at the students that come from across the country to Vermont, they choose it because they care about the same things that Vermonters care about, and they want to make a positive impact in the world. That's a high priority for the students that come to us. In fact, the number one thing I've heard our out-of-state students say is that they want to make a difference in the world, and that's why they chose UVM, and that's why they want to be a part of this state and this community. And we've been nationally recognized. So Princeton named us the #1 university for making a social impact in the country this year. And we were named, our MBA was named #1 in the United States for making a social impact and #2 in the world for making a social impact. So that sense that students who come here want to do good in the world is very, very powerful. And it's very much a part of the ethos. Thank you. So I mentioned that for every Vermonter we graduate, we have students that come from out of state who stay and give back in the state. Right now, we have about 35,000 of those alums who are living and working here in Vermont. And those are young people who are starting new coffee shops, starting new businesses, contributing to healthcare, thinking about ways to serve our communities. So, and making a difference in the environment here. So we're really proud of that impact. I mentioned that we were named an R1. What you may not know is that in just the last year, we brought $225 million into the state to do that research here in the state. And that money doesn't just feed the university, it feeds the economy. And so many of our researchers are striving to think about how to make things better. Many of you have probably seen our research vessel out on Lake Champlain. That was the first all-electric research vessel in the world. It was spec built for us to do research out on the lake. And the folks who work out on that lake and the students who work out on that lake are doing research that's helping to keep our fish species healthy, the water healthy, and the environment around the lake healthy every single day. But there are so many kinds of work that's happening on campus that's really designed to help our communities thrive. The other video I was going to show you was about our tech hub. So many of you know, and I can see, I'm sorry that in the translation, probably your machine has different fonts than our machine did. So it's kind of made things run off the edge. So it's 3.4 million was awarded to our semiconductor Gantech hub that's here at UVM and in Vermont. And what it's doing is, so semiconductors are in virtually everything. You may know that they're in your phone or in your computer, but they're also in people's microwaves and stoves, and they're in toys and tools. There's semiconductors in so anything that's a smart device has a semiconductor in it. And we saw during the pandemic, the ways in which that lack of flow through for semiconductors when the pandemic hit, the supply chain problems really impacted this country because we couldn't get vital appliances here. And so one of the things that under President Biden's leadership happened was they created a source of funding called the CHIPS and Science Act that was designed to bring that research home to the US and to bring the production of semiconductors home to the US. And so the Vegan Tech Hub is designed to look at a new material for semiconductors that will make them lighter and more flexible and will help make semiconductors smaller, which will mean batteries are lighter in electric cars, computers are lighter, that your phones can be lighter and more things can be put in them besides that semiconductor. And so that innovative work is happening right here in Vermont, and the research is happening at the University of Vermont right now. And we have just resubmitted an award. So you probably are aware that the Trump administration cut huge amounts of funding initially and froze a lot of funding to major research grants around the country. We had a grant that we had been awarded that was frozen, and we were invited to resubmit for that grant around this very research. We were invited to resubmit, and all 5 parts of our proposal have been accepted for the final phase. So watch the newspapers over the next several months about this this grant and this new tech hub that we've created. And it's designed to help that work thrive here so that young people have good jobs that they can stay and work no matter what their background is. So there'll be a whole range of level of jobs. We're also really proud that we helped launch biolabs here, which is doing critical health research and helping to take young, fresh ideas about how to improve healthcare and how to improve health and biotechnology, and to support the launch of those businesses right here in Vermont. So biolabs has been a national effort to increase our own ability to produce this biotechnological research. This was the first ever rural biolab in the entire country. So it was built here on the proposition that, of course, all communities need health innovation. All communities need science innovation. And so biolabs took a risk in partnership with UVM to launch that effort here so that we can do that critical research and launch those young industries right here in Vermont. We're also really proud that we have partnered with our donors to create industries that and to create research centers that allow us to teach businesses how to capture waste and operate more sustainably, and how to create a circular economy so that instead of producing objects, then producing waste, producing objects, producing waste, we're actually recapturing waste to think about how to reuse, reduce, and recycle. So it's creating economic opportunity just by having this new way of thinking about how we can work and partner with industry in the state. One of the things that I think is most exciting about the work that's happening at the university, and one of the things that I think for many of us feels closest to home, is the work that's happening in healthcare. We have folks who are working, for example, right now on vaccines for tick-borne illnesses. And that could be transformative for people in states where there's, for example, Lyme disease, which can be so crippling for people. In fact, a lot of people who get Lyme don't realize that they have Lyme until they're ill for quite a long time, and it can do real damage to your organs. If we develop a vaccine here, it will change people's lives. So we've got folks working on things like that tick-borne vaccine. We also have, I'm so proud of this, one of our faculty members developed in partnership an RSV vaccine. So the elderly and the young are really vulnerable to RSV. It's like a cold virus, but it's a particular version of a cold virus. And it causes serious illness in people who are over 65 and people who are young, very young. And they developed a vaccine that can be given at birth for this virus. And they have seen globally an 80% reduction in infant hospitalization for RSV since the institution of this virus. So it's literally changing people's lives and saving lives. And we're really proud that we're contributing to helping to produce the healthcare workforce. It's extraordinary to me, the two areas of of really extraordinary national excellence in our College of Medicine are rural healthcare and emergency healthcare. There are many areas where we have great strength. We're looking for a National Cancer Institute designation right now, and I think we'll win that this year. But we have been nationally known for emergency healthcare and for rural healthcare. Many of the people who graduate from our medical schools stay in practice in Vermont, or they go to neighboring states into rural communities. So they're making an impact in rural communities everywhere. And we recently got a gift, an extraordinary gift, a generous gift that's going to make it's a $16 million gift that's going to make an enormous amount of new scholarship money available for nursing students so we can grow the number of nurses in the state of Vermont. Thank you. And I'm so proud of this, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to show you the video for this because it's absolutely an extraordinary video. Our Osher Center, and I had the exceptional privilege this weekend to go meet Bernard Osher, who has been the funder for all of the Osher Centers. So you might be familiar with OLLI, the Osher Institute for Lifelong Learning that provides educational opportunities for people who are seniors. Just about 20 years ago, Osher became interested in integrative health. And so looking at ways that you can pair traditional healthcare methods with things like holistic pain management, helping people learn how to meditate, helping people use alternative practices to reduce their pain and suffering. And so our Osher Center is one of just 11 in the world for integrative healthcare. And I got the opportunity to sit down with Bernard Osher, and he talked about his vision for the ways in which places like UVM and these other 10 universities are going to change healthcare in the future with the research that we're doing right now. And what we've found with the pain clinic that we've already launched at the Osher Health Center, what we found with that pain clinic is that people who have chronic or serious illnesses that cause a great deal of pain are having 20% fewer emergency room and physician's visits because we're so effectively able to treat their pain. So we're making people's lives better with this kind of work. And this is actually the other video. This gentleman had an injury that caused him chronic pain. And he talks about how this Osher Center absolutely transformed his life. Many of you know that one of the things that we host through our Leahy Center for Rural Partnerships is the RISE Summit. And it brings people from all over the state to talk about how do we help Vermont and rural communities across Vermont become more prosperous and healthy. And it's RISE is an acronym for Research, Innovation, Sustainability, and Entrepreneurship. So how do we help people stay in Vermont and have their businesses and their careers and their lives here? And how do we help the people's lives here be better? And one of the things that I've made a very high priority for the university, and you'll see this in our strategic plan. In just a few weeks, our strategic plan goes before our board of trustees, and they'll vote to either approve or not approve it. And our strategic plan has an entire pillar out of its 4 pillars that's about our service to Vermont and our connections to the community and the work that we need to do to really fulfill that land grant mission of caring for the state. So we've created a new website that helps you learn more about how we're connecting with the community and about ways that you might connect with us. And so there's a QR code here if you're interested in either partnering with the university or getting assistance from the university. And so if you scan that with your phone, it'll take you right there. Or you can Google Community Connections at UVM and it'll provide you a link to that. So every municipality got a copy in the state of Vermont, got a copy of our strategic plan to give feedback. And if you haven't had a chance to yet, if you Google UVM strategic plan, you can go and see the draft after the plan and make comments and send. Honored to be here and to get a chance to talk with you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thank you so much, President Tromp. Yeah, go ahead. We have over 20 minutes for questions. And if I could just get a sense of how many people are interested in asking a question.
Someone behind you.
And so I think I would just ask that you keep your question maybe under 30 seconds. And also I will just try to prioritize Ward 1 residents first in Erhard. You want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Sam, and welcome to the Ward 1 NPA. Thanks for your presentation. As one of the folks who, in September, it will have been 50 years since I moved here to be a UVM student. So I'm one of the folks that you're talking about. My wife's a graduate of the 4-year nursing degree program, also now retired. You've been here long enough to, I think, understand that there's probably a fairly contentious or a history of contentious relations between the university and its neighbors. Many of us here in Ward 1 have spoken to this in the past. When I was a city councilor in the mid to late 80s, and Bernie was mayor, we negotiated the first agreement with UVM. I'll just note that back in those days, you had 8,500 students here. And now you have 3,000 more undergraduates, plus your program is to also increase graduate students and attract foreign students. I have a couple of friends that are also in the doctoral program. So I think the question I have and the point I want to raise, which is one that's been raised here many times in the past, is we appreciate the efforts that UVM has made to increase the number of students that it houses on campus. It's, if I'm remembering right, about 60% of undergraduates currently. The issue is that that percentage has remained steady while there was an increase of 3,000 students over time. And so the number of students that have not been housed and that impact our neighborhoods has grown while that percentage has remained the same. I think there's a great willingness. I'm a volunteer on the Burlington Planning Commission. I think there's great willingness to upzone certain areas of the campus to provide more student housing. I know construction costs and labor costs are extremely high right now and discourage the university from developing in South Burlington. But if there are ways that you can commit to not continually increasing the student body, I think there would be a great willingness. But I'm sure on the planning commission, I expect from the city council and the mayor's office also to engage in that zoning so that y'all could house more folks on campus. So say that with all appreciation to everything you do. It's great to see the updates. It's also great to see former Representative John Kalaki in the presentation, former director of the Flint Center as well.
Thank you so much. And it is an issue that I sat down and talked with the mayor about as soon as I arrived. There is no place I've been. So I was at UC Santa Cruz before I went to Boise State and then in Boise, and both of those cities too had a terrible housing crisis, similar to here. And in California, of course, as you probably know, housing costs are astronomical, and Santa Cruz had the highest building costs of any city in the country because it's such an isolated beach town and you have to come across the mountains. So I really understand that issue, and it is hard to build and it is costly to build, but we've got to find good solutions and we've got to find good partnerships. And I'll tell you a project I worked on with the mayor of Boise. So it wasn't completed before I left, but we had done all the preliminary work, and I feel confident the project will go forward because we'd actually already gotten the approval of the board and everything. We were looking to partner together to create housing that would bring together students that were working in relevant areas and unhoused families, so that we could partner to create a facility that would allow us to address multiple issues in the community and take pressure off of housing. And every time you make even a single bed available, that doesn't just take that student out of the community, it gives a space to somebody else. So it works in both directions every single time. And so I recognize that the urgency of that need, and I think there's urgency around this state on this issue. And one of the things I talked with Beth Mauck, who's the chancellor of the Vermont State Colleges system, is are there ways in which when we send UVM students out to do internships or co-op programs around the state, they can stay in your student housing, which right now is largely unoccupied. And that'll take pressure off of our community too. So we're looking at a lot of different ways to impact the problem, but we recognize that we have to really think about it. And we have to do it in partnership with our communities, with our city, and with our state. So I understand the issue, and we're going to keep learning more about it. And I've given my leadership team a series of grand challenges as we face the strategic plan. And one of them is this very issue. How can we be really active in helping to resolve the housing problems?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there, President Trump, and
Hi.
welcome.
Do you know, I always say, call me Dr. Trump, then there'll be no confusion.
I hear you,
But you're welcome to call me Marlene. Thank you.
Dr. Trump, and I'm trying to pronounce your name with great precision.
My sister's very conscious about that.
In the aftermath, Dr. Trump, of the recent tragedy at Brown University,
Yes.
I imagine every college and university in America will undertake a review of safety and security for that university's entire community, students, administration, faculty, staff, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So will UVM review the safety and security of its constituencies? And I would suggest that outside experts conduct the review and the evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. And I will tell you that because I've been on a campus where we've had crisis and threat before, I'm very keenly aware of this. And literally on my first day on the job, I said, I want to do a tabletop exercise and then I want to do a live exercise. Because we don't just need the analysis, we need people to practice so they know exactly what to do. And we need to do it every year. We need to have those exercises every year. And one of the things, we just had our first tabletop experience last week. And one of the things that we're working on, we now have 4 FEMA trained people outside of our safety and security program that are all on leadership, who are able to help us think through all these issues. And we have done the external review, and we have, we're building now that muscle and building protocols, and we're going to educate not just our leadership team, but our community about what to do in a crisis. Because unfortunately, we see, one of the things that we see happen is that universities are one of the places where people can count on folks being gathered together. And so they become targets nationally. And so we have to work with great earnestness and purpose to make sure we have good safety protocols, that we're constantly evaluating them. And we've got both, we've reviewed them against both state protocols and against FEMA protocols nationally. And our protocol is based on, our campus protocols based on the FEMA protocol. And we're also training our team and training all the way down to leadership so that folks know what to do and how to help. And building a good communications infrastructure too, so that it's, if something happens on campus, it's not just our campus community that knows what happens, it's our entire community that knows.
And these plans will be communicated to students, their families, and the rest of the UVM community.
You bet. In fact, we actually have right now on campus posters all across campus and in all the academic buildings and in the dorms that give people a primer on what to do if there's an emergency. But then we have really comprehensive plans that are housed in all of our leadership units so people know what to do. Thank you for asking.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So my name's Lisa Lax, Dr. Tromp, and very glad to meet you. Have a wonderful reputation. I'm a graduate of the EDD program at UVM, and I worked in the Department of Social Work for 20 years almost. That's a great department, by the way.
Yeah.
So I love UVM, but I want to piggyback on some things that Erhard was talking about, and you're addressing about creative ideas for housing, but the point is there are over 3,000 more students who are living on camp or living in this community, not counting the increase in graduate students. And that not only affects housing, but it affects the infrastructure, streets, sewer, etc. And this is a very small community, so it is of concern about growing the population of students. We really can't grow Burlington. We can't, make the streets, create more streets, etc. So I do think there needs to be some attention to that. And I also think that there needs to be attention to how UVM can be a good neighbor to residential communities. As an example, this is something that's been a bugaboo for me for several years. There's been an event on the Trinity campus where I think it's in the late fall, a bunch of snow is trucked in. There's a big ski jump that's created, and there's really loud music. I live on a street that's perpendicular to that area, and this is, in cold weather, my windows are closed, my doors are closed, my house is vibrating when that event happens. And I think it's great to have events. Students need outlets, they need fun things to do. That's, it's not substance related, but does that have to be as loud as it is? And every year I have to make a call to the UVM police. So that's only one example. I'm sure there's other events like that. And I think that I'm glad to hear that you're approaching this with a community, relationship mindset, because I think that would go a long way for us to, feel positively about all these wonderful programs that UVM has.
Thank you, Lisa, and let me say the 11,000 figure includes the graduate students. I broke it out below that, so you can see the graduate, but it does include them, and I'll tell you that right now I feel like we're really right-sized as a university. And so my ambition is not to grow, my ambition is to create more resources for the community, and that's for our students and for the broader Burlington community. So I don't have an ambition to grow UVM, but I will tell you something that a lot of people don't know. This surprised the mayor when I talked to her about it. It's such common knowledge in higher ed that I didn't realize that people didn't know. Have you heard of the demographic cliff? I'm sure Troy, who has heard this phrase a million times. The demographic cliff is the percentage of people who will be college age. So when you can look down, across young people between 0 and 17, and we've actually, as a nation, hit an enormous cliff, and now those numbers are declining. And so the problem is the biggest problem of the demographic cliff, which will make the whole nation upside down demographic, which is why it's a problem, because it hurts the ability for us to provide healthcare, provide services, things like that as a country. But the place where the problem is the most serious is in the Northeast. So it's likely to most affect places like the schools in New England. And because we've had a decline in the number of young people in our state, we're likely actually to see some declines. And so bringing students in from out of state and having them stay and give back here is going to make a big impact. But my ambition is not to grow the numbers because actually I don't think that's likely or possible in the new, the demographic cliff begins this year. And so we're gonna see a decline in the population, and what that's created across the country is extremely fierce competition for the students that do exist. So virtually with the exception of a handful of states, the demographic is decreasing. And so, like, for example, University of Missouri is going to be fighting for Vermont kids. University of Illinois is going to be fighting for Vermont kids. So it's going to actually probably decrease the population that we see nationally. We know it's going to be decreasing the population of college going. And one of the things I'd love to do in this state is ensure that there are people all over this state that have some college, no degree. And it's a heartbreak for a person like me, because what I know that means is somebody invested time and money and didn't get the credential that could have changed their future and their careers. So we want to ensure that people who already live here get access to the university if they want to change their lives. So I see a lot of other ways that we can do that. And I would love to see us grow our online programming, which won't impact people being here. It'll be people who are remotely studying with our programs here. So I'm looking for other ways to address the kinds of problems we'll face with the demographic cliff. And they're not about just bringing people to Burlington.
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Trump, thank you very much for being here this evening. My name is Brett Allen. I was actually a faculty member in the Rubenstein School for about 20 years.
Thank you.
Inaugural professor of watershed science and planning. Hi, how you doing? I'm director of the Sea Grant program for a number of years.
Oh,
we are living in polarized times. As a matter of fact, we opened up our meeting this evening on a polar topic, a topic that has polar opinions. As the president of UVM now, how are you going to navigate? How do you intend to navigate the mission of Land Grant University to be open to all opinions versus these sometimes very polarizing conversations? And maybe a little bit further on how can you be a model for the rest of us, or a facilitator for the rest of us in Burlington and in Vermont in having these conversations?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And I'm going to pull up the draft of the strategic plan right now. So I'm not texting someone. I'm pulling up the draft of the strategic plan. Thank you for that. I actually think universities have not fully taken up the role they need to in being a part of that kind of conversation. And I think it's critical around the country. And I think, so the language that we're seeing in the plan right now that our community has built okay. One of the critical strategies is under a pillar of the plan that's called Create Opportunity, Access, Engagement, and Partnership. One of the primary strategies that's been drafted is amplify belonging, dialogue, and civic life. Strengthen belonging, prioritize mattering, and provide opportunities for community to listen across difference through civic discourse and intercultural dialogue. Integrate these practices in support of recruitment, retention, and engagement within and beyond campus. And I have asked Wendy, who's seated next to me right now, and the dean of our honors college, Dave Gentleman, to lead an effort that's based on an effort I produced in Idaho. So some of you may know that I came here from Idaho, where the attacks on higher education began in this country. The very first anti-DEI laws, the very first anti-CRT laws, really pitched attacks on higher education, proposals for 20 and 30 and $50 million budget cuts to the university to punish the university for permitting an array of voices to speak. And so we developed a program there called Idaho Listens, and Idaho Public Television actually made a documentary about it. And the program was so impactful and so effective. We brought people together, 10 different individuals from different perspectives and backgrounds, very different value systems. And instead of asking them to speak about issues, which is where we instantly collide, you can take almost any issue that's polarizing and people line up on one side or the other of it, and then they clash. Instead of, beginning with the point of issues, we begin with the point of values. And there's new research that's just come out from Stanford, from one of their neuroscience labs, that shows that when you ask people to talk about what they value, which is exactly what we've framed this program to do, they become more open to hearing other people's perspectives. It actually shifts their perception of other people's perspectives. So we invite people to come and talk about what they value and why. And when I did this program in Idaho, we did it all over the state, and we worked with communities all over the state. As Wendy and I traveled around the state, and we've talked to legislators and civic leaders and educators all across the state. And what people told us is, please bring that program here. We need that in our community. And we know that it's become harder and harder for us to hear and see each other. And we've actually become really efficient at dehumanizing each other. And there's a really interesting book. I don't love the way it's written. Sometimes it's a little too flippant, a little too tongue-in-cheek, but it's a very powerful collection of research called Hope for Cynics. And it's by a scholar, a neuroscientist at Stanford called Jamil Zaki. And what it talks about is the fact that actually most of the time people have much more goodwill and good intention than we think they do, even when we're colliding with them. And so this program is designed to bring that civic dialogue and to teach people how to talk to each other and to help people see each other again. And it was so significant and impactful in Idaho that actually other states invited us to bring it. So we're launching it here, and the interest in it has been so high all across the state. So we're really excited. And I think because of Vermont's history, and this is it right here, right now, what you're doing is what our country needs to do. Even when it's hard, we need to talk with each other. Even when we disagree, we need to come together. And you've done that here today. And Vermont is a model. It's got a deep history of this, and UVM has a deep history of this. And so I think Vermont and UVM can be a beacon of light for our country in terms of democracy and civic dialogue and civic engagement. Very passionate about that.
Carter, go ahead.
There we go. Well, thank you. This is great. Yeah, also a university grad, turned city councilor, Flatlander from Connecticut. My wife is also a graduate from the nursing program. So my question, and I guess I'm not looking for an answer per se, but as you're having conversations with the mayor, and we have conversations about MOU and defining this relationship, and as you progress in the role, I'm really interested in the pilot funds, and to my mind, historically, or at least now, the university's contribution for those things that I think it was Lisa, you mentioned, the impact on infrastructure when we've seen a greater number of students over the last number of years, that those pilot funds don't seem to have kept pace. And, we were having a conversation earlier, and there's a resolution, and you attended the council meeting, I actually think, when we were, or you may have.
Wendy did.
Wendy did, okay, so yeah, someone did. When we were talking about UVM housing, another example of where, the university is by far the largest landlord in the city, right, as a single institution with thousands of units. you know, those rental registration fees that any other rental unit would be subject to, the university's not subject to, as an example. So I guess I'm not proposing anything or looking for a specific answer. I guess I just would ask that be considered, because I do think we are all facing tight budgets, and I know the same is probably true for every institution, nonprofit, except that. But I do think that that's a priority for many of us in the council.
I really appreciate hearing you say that, and I'm still learning about these the agreements that have happened in the past, and the mayor and I have a meeting coming up just a few weeks down the road, I think, to begin our dialogue about these issues, and she and the previous president made the decision to put it on hold. But I think there are going to be a lot of things to consider and to think about, and I do think we have to be really thoughtful and think about our relationship to the community. And I'm really open to learning more and to thinking about new ways that we can work together. And I know that there's a lot of people who love the university and feel the university is valuable, but are concerned about impact and relationship, and that matters to me, because this is our community. You're our community. Thank you.
Sharon, go ahead. Do you have a microphone over there?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sharon Busher, and I've lived in this world. I came from Massachusetts, and I'm one of those students, went to UVM, that stayed. And I love Vermont, and I love Burlington. And I was also on the city council, and I've seen a lot of different approaches of trying to partner UVM and the city. And as I told you when you walked in tonight, I am very hopeful. I think you set a different tone, and you bring a new perspective, and I believe an earnest willingness to work with Burlington, and I really appreciate that. We've had lots of presidents, and some of them have been better partners with us and understood the problems that we face as being a close neighbor. We're, you know, we are your neighbor, and as other people spoke, that we respect you and we want you to respect us. And I used to take an old woman grocery shopping, and she used to say, fences make good neighbors. And I think boundaries is what you're really talking about, understanding each other's boundaries and understanding where we can cooperate and where we need to focus on our own goals and missions, but not at the expense of the other. So one of the scenarios that I was most pleased with happened a long time ago, probably in the 90s, but UVM started a process of a plan. It was it's called a landmass plan or whatever, but it was a plan that you invited the community, and you had big circles with the community members and university members. And what you talked about was, and I know some things have to be more guarded, but what you talked about was where you saw yourself, where you wanted to go, and you asked for community input. And it was in a circle of maybe 8 or 10 people around these big tables. And I got to participate, and a lot of people did. And so what you heard was what worked for us, what we wanted more of, what we wanted less of. And you shared with us your vision. I feel like we've had to, in recent past, we've had to extract each other's visions, especially UVM. And I mean, I went there, you know, you're my alma mater, but I don't always like you at all. And so that's just the truth. So I want shared visions. I feel like the more we know that is open and the more we collaborate. Even what I'm trying to suggest is that it's not just the city council. It's the people in this room, the people in all the rooms, all the residents who want to take a chance in participating and giving input in a less formal process. I just want to encourage you to think of those kinds of options. Now, the last thing I'm going to close with is that I am an open space fanatic, probably, and I have to balance the real housing crisis with preservation of open space. I'm going to say that my life now, I work for the government and I have to go places, and some of those places are on your campus. And there are some parking lots that I think are in close proximity to where students go to school that could be developed, and you could keep the parking on the surface and you could grow and go above it. And I think you wouldn't have to replace the rugby field, and you wouldn't have to do this transportation and that transportation. I'm saying that I think that UVM needs to look critically at what they have on campus that's available, that is more affordable. You aborted before you got here. They aborted one proposal because they said it didn't work. The math didn't work. But I could go on forever. I will shut up now, but I really hope that there is collaboration on many levels, and that you understand the need for us to make housing more affordable and for you to play a role by creating more housing.
Thank you for that. And I really do care about engaging the community, which is why I'm here. And you're sitting in a friend's meeting house right now, and I'm a Quaker. And Quaker principles call on me to engage with people and to understand people. And they have impacted my leadership style. It's part of the reason that it matters to me to hear people. It's some of these problems that we are facing as a community and as a country are really serious, and there aren't easy solutions. But I really believe we can work in partnership and in collaboration and come up with solutions that are meaningful and make a difference. And so I'm looking forward to the conversations. And you're right, it needs not just to be the mayor, which is why I showed up here tonight. When I got the invitation, I said, yes, please. And I want to share with you, I was originally invited to attend an earlier meeting. And some of you may have seen the 7 Days story and know that my sister lives here with me. My sister is terminally ill, and I'm her caregiver. And she had a serious recurrence of her illness. And so I had to cancel, but I didn't want you to think I blew off the initial Ward 1 meeting. And so I'm really happy to be here. And I hope that you will all look at the strategic plan on the website and give your feedback, because we've reached out to every municipality in the state and said, please share this with your citizens. We want to hear what people's input. You are our neighbors and you are our community. And so I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're just about out of time, but I would like to thank Dr. Tromp so much for coming. It obviously means a lot. I think I was most moved tonight by how UVM has touched almost everyone who spoke. And even I just started my UVM class through the state's dual enrollment program, which allows high school students to take classes at any school. And so I'm taking intro to philosophy at UVM, and I'm really excited about that. But yeah, if everyone wants to give a warm round of applause for Dr. Tromp.
Thank you. And if you see me in town, please feel free to come over and say hi, and please feel free to call me Marlene. Thank you.
Thank you. The public meetings